Hi everybody, my name is Amelia and welcome back to my channel. Okay, so I'm a little late, but today I am doing the 21 tarot questions tag. 21 questions? I think it's 21 tarot questions. This is a tag that was created by Lisa Papez and her wife Peggy over on Lisa's channel. And so yeah, I really wanted to do this, but then I ended up going on vacation, so I'm a little late. But I really wanted to do this and just share my decks and answer these prompts because I don't think I've ever done a tarot tag on the channel yet. I love watching tarot tags, but I just haven't done one. So this is my very first one, and yeah, I'm very happy to do it. So anyway, I'm not going to spend a long time on this intro because it's kind of a long video since there are 21 prompts, but I feel like it went well. It went faster than I expected, in all honesty, because you guys know I talk a lot. Anyway, before we get into today's video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up if you like it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. And if you have any other tags or questions or whatever, leave them down in the comments below and I will get back to you as quickly as I can. So anyway, that is it for this intro. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So I want to get through these as quickly as possible so I don't take up all of your time. So let's just go ahead and hop into the first prompt. So the first prompt is, what is the deck that someone will have to pry out of your cold, dead hands? And for me, you guys already know, it's the Crow Tarot. This is my soul deck. This is the deck that I do all of my shadow readings with. It's the one I never share. It is like my go-to deck for deep personal readings. I don't even know why it reads so well, but it does. Every time I see this deck, I see the cards and I know exactly what they mean. I know what it's trying to tell me. And if you guys have been here for a while, you know that this is like my deck, right? Like this is the one that I gush about all the time. And unfortunately, it does fall into a couple other prompts in this video. I tried to include as many decks of mine as I could, but some decks just didn't make the cut. But yeah, so this is for prompt number 1. Someone's gonna have to pry this out of my cold, dead hands because I will never, ever, ever give this up, and I don't share it either, so Crow Tarot. For prompt number 2, it is, what is your guilty pleasure deck? Now, for me, I actually struggled with this one because I don't think I have a deck that feels like a guilty pleasure. I watched a few other videos and people chose more intimate or sensual decks, and I just don't really have anything like that, so for this prompt, I ended up choosing, I ended up choosing the Dungeons and Dragons tarot deck. I don't know if this counts as guilty pleasure, but like, this is my creative deck, so here are the backs for it. I haven't used it a ton, but I recently mentioned in my Zodiac video, I believe, that this is the deck I want to use for creative work, and I don't know, it doesn't really feel like guilty pleasure, but it makes me happy, and I use it for creative work. I don't know, I pair it with pyrite, so when I think of like pleasure and like successes and stuff like that, I think of pyrite, but I don't know, I just didn't have anything else that really fit, so this is the one I chose. Apologies that it doesn't fit the prompt, but I can't think of a single deck I have that feels like guilty pleasure, but this one, I don't know. I like what it has going on, so sure. Okay, so for prompt number 3, the question was, what's the deck that you wish existed? And so obviously I don't have anything to show you here, but the deck that I wish existed would be one in like first POV. Now the thing is, there is a deck that has like a first person like depiction, and I believe it's called the Tarot of Oneness. I'll put the title up on the screen as well as the name of the creator. I don't have this deck. It is an indie deck, and for me, part of the reason I don't have it is because I just don't have the funds or like the money to do that right now. I'm trying to budget a little bit more, and another reason is because I wasn't in love with all of the cards, and like I don't have to be in love with an entire deck in order to get it, but I do have to be in love with at least like more than half of the deck. And my problem with this deck, as well as my problem with the Spacious Tarot, is that while both of them have very nice first-person depictions, which is what I'm looking for in a deck, I wasn't in love with the artwork, and I wasn't in love with every single card depiction, or like the majority of the card depictions. Like with the Spacious Tarot in particular, I took tally marks of the cards I loved, cards I was okay with, and ones I didn't like, and long story short, about like, I would say somewhere between 25 and 50% of the deck I just didn't like. And so because of that, it kind of prevented me from buying it. But one day, maybe there'll be a first person view, first POV deck that I'm in love with, or if I make my own, that's kind of what I was thinking of doing, but I don't know if I'll ever have the time and the resources to do that. But yeah, if there was a deck that existed that I could have, that'd be that one. Okay, for prompt number 4, what deck would you give to a new reader? So you guys probably have heard me say before that I would always recommend the RWS deck for a new reader, or like the Thoth Tarot, or the or like another tarot system. But for me, the RWS system is very easy to understand, and it's one I often recommend. But instead of just choosing my regular RWS deck, I chose this one, which is the Smith White Tarot Deck Centennial Edition. So it's still an RWS deck, but it's in a tin, and I think that I'd recommend this for beginners because it's a small deck, so it's easy to shuffle, and it feels a lot like playing cards, and I think that that's very familiar and easy for new people to get a hang of. It's super tiny, and I think the imagery is very soft and gentle. It is a bit washed out, so it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I feel like it tends to be a bit more gentle because it's so soft. And, you know, it's all there. Like, it's the RWS artwork, it's, you know, Pamela Coleman Smith's artwork, so, you know, I feel like it's very approachable and good for a beginner, and it helps you understand like all the tarot meanings and just like what they mean. So you have this like, you know, background knowledge, but again, it's so tiny you can carry it with you. I think this is a good size for a study deck and for big spreads because, you know, big spreads can take up a lot of space, but you can just like lay down so many cards in like the small space and it works totally fine. So this is what I would recommend for a beginner. And again, I think that it's very approachable. So I think my only downside for this is that there isn't like a guidebook, but I always recommend beginners go to 78 Degrees of Wisdom by Rachel Pollack because that is a fantastic book. So yeah, pairing that with this would be, you'd be golden, you'd be set. Prompt number 5, what deck do you want to get along with, but it just never clicked? So this one is, here's my little bag for it. I have broken the strings a couple times and had to retie them. This is my Mystical Dream Tarot. So I love the artwork on this deck. I love this deck, but it just doesn't click for me. Here are the backs, very shiny, very silver. And here's the artwork. I love the artwork in this one, but it's so packed, like jam-packed with spiritual depictions. The titles have been renamed. The Dreamer of Wands. We have the Wise Fox. Like, the cards have been renamed, so you have the Wise Fox's Death. Like, but you kind of just have to like know your tarot really, really well to be able to know what is what. But all the titles got redone, which can make it very tricky. And then the art isn't super like helpful, I guess. So we have like, you go to something. Okay, so here we have the 8 of Swords, which is typically a person kind of like surrounded by a bunch of swords, and they're, you know, a victim to their own circumstance. Like, they could just step out of the swords, take off the blindfold, but they don't. And this just doesn't have the same imagery, and so there's also 2 people here, and you have to like really dive into the card, and I had to like really use the guidebook to understand what was going on. I absolutely love the art. I love the way it looks. But how is this 5 of Pentacles? I don't know. It's very confusing. There is so much imagery in it. It sometimes goes over my head. The guidebook is written very fluffy. Maybe I'll do a deep dive of this one day and try hard to understand it. I tried once and it just didn't click. So I don't really use this deck. I love it. I think the artwork is beautiful, but it has not yet clicked for me. Okay, so for prompt number 6, what deck do you only keep for the art? So this was kind of tricky because I don't really have a deck that I just keep for the art. I do have decks that I like the art and I don't really use them, so like you just saw the Mystical Dream. I don't really use the deck as much as I would love to because it just doesn't click for me, but I love the art, so I'm not going to part with it, but I do want to one day use it more, and I do want to study it, and I feel like with most of my decks, I do have a use for them, or I plan to, so I don't feel like I'm keeping any of them just for the art, but if I had to answer this prompt, I would go with the Santa Muerte Tarot. So this deck was the one that I kind of like purchased, and I didn't need it at the time. I just sort of purchased it because I don't know, I was in the mood for having a deck, but not necessarily this one. I do love the art. I think it's beautiful. I hate the cardstock though. It's too glossy and too thick for me, but I really do like the art for it, and I almost only use it for the art, it seems, in a way. Like, I do readings with it sometimes, but it just never, I don't know, I just never feel like I need to grab it. Like, if I want a deck that's spooky and dark, I'm going to pick a different deck, and if I want one about family work and stuff, I'm going to pick a different deck, so it just kind of doesn't, it's not needed for me at the moment, which is interesting, because I am going through some familial problems at the moment, so I feel like I should grab this, but I just haven't felt drawn to. But when October comes around, so like Halloween and then Dia de los Muertos and like all the spooky stuff, like spooky season, this deck goes up on my altar. So I'll pick like, 3 cards. In theory I'd pick 3 cards and I put them up on the altar, and I just kind of like decorate the space, and yeah, I use it for the art. So yeah, I should work with it more, but just haven't felt called to. So if I were keeping a deck for its art, it'd be this one. Okay, so for prompt number 7, what deck did you buy because everyone else did? Now, I don't have a lot of decks where everyone else had them and I felt like I wanted that same exact deck because of FOMO. I don't really have that, but I do have this Lenormand deck that I don't use. I have seen so many people with Lenormand, reading with Lenormand, using Lenormand, and I was like, you know what, I want to learn Lenormand. I want to hop on this like Lenormand trend, and I want to read with my Lenormand deck. And I have yet to learn the Lenormand after having this deck for some time. Part of it is because I showed this deck on my channel when I did my deck collection tour, and then I did not use it since. Like, that was like the only time I used it. I opened it up later and a card was missing, so I'm missing one of the cards. And the funny thing is, when I replayed that video, my deck collection video or Oracle collection video, when I played it, that card is very much on screen. I will put like a screenshot of it right here. So I'm interested. I don't know where that card went. I have looked. I have only opened this deck in 2 rooms in my entire house, and I've only opened it like 3 times total. 4, I guess, now that it's opened again. It is in order now, and if I kid you not, if I find this card in here, I think I'm going to scream. I don't know where it went. I've been looking for it. Yeah, but that's why I don't use this deck. So I feel like I got the Lenormand because everybody else did, and now I feel like I have to buy another Lenormand if I want to fully learn it because I'm missing a card. And I just don't really feel drawn to do that, to purchase another one. But it's a totally different system, a totally different thing, I guess, and it's a lot, so I haven't. I'm gonna see if that card is in here. Oh, see, card 30, missing. Card 30 is nowhere to be seen. I don't know what happened to card 30, which is Lilies, I believe. It's just gone. So yeah, I haven't really used it because I'm missing an entire card, no idea where it went, and yeah, so now I feel like I have this deck just because I saw everybody else with it, and I don't even use it. Okay, so this next deck is what deck, it's prompt number 8, it is what deck is over your head or just baffles you. And obviously, like Mystical Dream, I thought of that one immediately because it just baffles me completely, but another one that's over my head is my vintage deck. So I just got this deck from an antique store not too long ago, and I haven't really worked with it, but it is from 1970, and here's the original pamphlet, 1970, and I like it a lot. It's a pip deck, which is unusual for me, and it is like kind of Marseille style, but not really. It's like its own thing. But this deck really wants you to focus on elements and numbers. Like, you need to be well versed in numerology and like elements and the decans and all that stuff with the tarot. Like, you need to be well versed in that stuff, or you're not going to get the message is. And I feel like my problem is I need to study that stuff more, because this deck threw out King of Wands, and then it threw out Jupiter, which is card 5, which would normally represent the Hierophant, when it told me that it was a Sagittarius. And it requires some, like, as you can see, this is the High Priestess if it's been renamed. It requires some understanding of, like, gods, goddesses, not like numerology, zodiac decans, like all kinds of stuff, and I just don't have that knowledge yet. So I'm not ready to work with this deck because it kind of goes over my head. It's very, very structured in that stuff. So yeah, eventually I will work to better understand it, but yeah, it's a sweet deck. Otherwise, I just am not at the level that it wants me to be at to work with it. Okay, so prompt number 9. What deck surprised you? This one, it totally did. The Gold Foil Tarot. This totally shocked me. Now, before I continue and like show these cards here, this was a gift to me. And I have no idea who the seller was. I do not know if this is a stolen art deck or not. I really do not know. I do have a card for it. Hold on. I have this card here. It says Universal White Tarot Deck. You might not be able to read it because the gold, it shines. But it says drawings by Pamela Coleman Smith, coloring by Mary Hanson Roberta, and conceived by Stuart R. Kaplan. So this is the card that came with it. I just kind of keep it up because I like the back. So I just kind of keep it up and just hung up in my room, I guess. But those are the names of the people for it. But I don't really know if this was purchased from someone else who took the artwork or not. I have tried to find the Gold Foil Tarot online. I found it before, but then the listings get taken down, probably because they were stolen, and I have a really hard time finding those people by their name and like just the Gold Foil Tarot as it is. So with that said, this deck itself might be stolen. I really do not know where my friend got it, and I haven't asked her for the link from her Amazon like cart to be like, hey, can you like send me your link so I can see where you got it from. I just haven't asked yet. But yeah, so before we go into that, I want you to know that this could be not authentic. And the thing is that I do love this deck, and I have a really hard time, like, I don't want to get rid of it. I don't want to just scrap it. I don't want to have to purchase another version because I just can't find a more authentic version than this one. I love the box it's in. I like the cardstock. I like a lot about it. And so I'm not too interested in getting a different version, but I'm no longer going to be linking to this deck in the, like, in my description. So if you guys want this deck, best of luck to you, because there are so many copies and decks that have this box but different cardstock, or the cards but different box. Like, there's so many different versions of it that I cannot find the original, and I'm just not going to be linking to it anymore. But I do like this. It surprised me, and I am probably going to continue showing it on the channel just because it's a deck that I use regularly, and it's one that I really, really, really enjoy. I love the cardstock. It's not, I mean, it's plasticky, but it's so flexible. It's the only deck I think I can bridge. Well, I haven't tried recently, but now I'm kind of interested. Almost. See, and like, I can't do that with any deck at all. So that's pretty good for me. But yeah, it's black and gold. So it's like this matte black with like the shiny gold, and I really like it. It surprised me. I didn't think I was gonna like this because I don't like RWS clones very much. I don't like the pink ones and the holographic ones and the blue ones that you see with this minimal pixie artwork, but then like a different color background. Like, I just don't like that. So I didn't think I was gonna like this at all. Like, my friend got it for me, and you know, it's a gift, so you're like, wow, that's great. But I wasn't really sure I was actually going to like it, and then I started using this thing, and I love it. I love it. The deck's attitude is so compatible with me and the types of readings I need. I really like it, so I can't get rid of it because it's a deck that I didn't expect to bond with, and I don't know how my friend is so good at getting decks that I love, because she got the Crow Tarot, and that's a deck that I didn't expect I would like, and I am in love with it. So I don't know how she knows me so well, but She does, and this deck surprised me by working really well with me, by proving that even though it's an RWS clone, I can still enjoy it, and I didn't think I would. So yeah, again, I have some issues with that whole possibility of it being stolen artwork, but I do have this card, and I don't know if other decks come with it or not. Letting you know that, just because I know that unfortunately stolen decks do exist in the tarot community, and it's hard to know whether they're stolen or not, and it's especially hard if people are gifting you decks. So yeah, but this deck surprised me. Okay, so for prompt number 10, it says, what deck doesn't really work for you, but you keep it because it's a collectible? Now, I don't really have any collectible decks. If I did have a collectible deck, it'd probably be an indie deck of some sort that's out of print, but the indie decks that I have are not out of print yet, so I don't necessarily consider them collectible at the moment. So I don't really have any out of print decks, I don't think, that I consider collectible. So taking that part out of the prompt, instead I want to focus on what deck doesn't really work for you, but you keep it anyway. Okay, like you just keep it. And for me, that is the Jane Austen tarot deck. This is gifted to me from my mom. I'm an author, so my mom was like, oh, you're gonna like this, you know, because Jane Austen, author stuff, you know, it's cool. And, you know, Pride and Prejudice is like a really cute little movie that I like, and I like these vintagey sorts of things, but this deck just doesn't work for me. It doesn't click for me. I get really frustrated with the way the majors were dealt with, because it's basically a playing card deck, but then every now and again, like this one has, it's the Jack of Diamonds, or in this case, I think that would be, it's either the Page or the Knight of Diamonds. I'm not quite sure. I think it's Page, right? Well, I'm not really sure, but it's at the start. You know what? We'll get a better example. Okay, here we have the Empress as the Queen of Wands. I don't really see the Queen of Wands as Empress. Like, I kind of can, but when I think of the Empress, if I had to pick a minor arcana, or I would pick the Queen of Cups to be the Empress instead of the Queen of Wands. Like, I get it, because Queen of Wands is about creativity, and so is the Empress, but when I think of motherly energy, I'm gonna go straight to Queen of Cups. And so the meanings just don't work for me. Nine of Wands as the Sun, like, I don't know, that's my biggest problem with it, honestly. And then the artwork is okay, but it's not my favorite, so yeah, I don't know. I struggle with it. I don't really use it. It's pretty, and I keep it because I just don't want to get rid of it, because I feel like one day I might like it, but that day has not come yet. So it's a deck that doesn't work for me, and I keep it, but I don't know why. I just do. So alright, so for prompt 11, what deck is your favorite gilded deck? This deck might just be my favorite when it comes to like artwork and luxury in general, and that is the Fyodor Pavlov Tarot. I don't really have that many gilded decks, to be honest, so this was kind of like, I'm gonna feature the other deck, so like later on, so this was just kind of like, okay, well, I hadn't talked about this one yet, so here it is. Here's that pretty gilding. It's a very soft gilding. It does chip, just like all gilding does, but it's like a nicer gilding, in all honesty. And I love the foil on the backs, but the artwork, oh, the linen cardstock, the artwork, the whole thing is just very luxurious. And so I love this deck, and it's probably one of my most aesthetic decks, or at least one of the aesthetics that I just really love seeing in a deck. Love that Magician. Like, I put this up and put it on my altar, and I like read with it a lot, and it's just so pretty to like look at, and I'm trying to find some that aren't reversed and stuff, but yeah, it's just gorgeous. It's a gorgeous deck. Danny Mystic had just put this deck on her channel, and I saw it for the first time, and she called it a thing of beauty, and it truly is. I think it's a thing of beauty, and I absolutely love that Hermit. I love this deck so stinking much. But yeah, it is gilded. Nice little gilded deck. It feels amazing too. So I would say if you're looking for like a really nice mass market deck that just feels like luxury, has gorgeous artwork, like this is your deck. Fyodor Pavlov deck is for you. If you want that really nice, elegant touch, and like also keeping it RWS based, so that way it's pretty easy to understand too. So Really, really like this one. Okay, for prompt 12, which deck do you love but hate the cardstock? I don't know about the cardstock, but the cards themselves I hate. Ancestral Path Tarot. Love this deck. Hate the cards so much. This is a problem. This is a problem. I rant about this in my Oracle collection video. Now this is a tarot deck, but I use it as an Oracle because of its size. Look at it compared to a normal tarot card. Why? Why? Who said this was a good idea? And why did they think that? It is so hard to shuffle. It's hard to even like overhand shuffle. It's a nightmare. It's just a nightmare for the cardstock. And the worst part is you can't trim it down because you cut off the artwork. Like, look how gorgeous this artwork is. It is so magical. It is so beautiful. I love the art in this one. I don't like this one or this one, but for the most part, I like the cards. Like, there are a few cards I don't like, but for the most part, like, oh, it's so cute. And I love this. I love how the depictions are. I love the meanings you can draw from it. I don't like this card. For the most part, I like it. And I think my problem is that you can't trim it down, because if you cut it, you're going to cut off that part, or like the bottom, or like you're going to cut off important artwork. So I can't even trim it down because the artwork goes to the edge. But it's just so big, it's hard to handle. And the card stock itself is fine. It's like papery kind of cardboard. It's thin enough. It's literally just the size. The size of the card is the problem. Again, love the art, love a lot of the depictions in this deck. Can't get behind the absolute behemoth size of the cardstock. And the worst thing too is, like, you can only put down like maybe 3 cards and you've taken up the entire table. So that does make it very difficult as well. Okay, so for prompt 13, it says, what deck gives you the willies? Now, the thing is that I don't have any decks that I own that give me the willies, or like give me the heebie-jeebies, or like that make me feel uncomfortable. I don't have any decks like that probably because if it makes me feel uncomfortable, I don't want it, you know? So I don't really have any decks that feel that way to me, but I have seen a few decks. There's 2 that I am interested in purchasing that kind of feel that way. So the first one is the Deviant Moon Tarot. I'll put a picture of the deck up here. That deck kind of gives me the willies, or the heebie-jeebies, and my friend has it. She is absolutely in love with it, does amazing shadow work. She loves that deck, and so I think that one unnerves me slightly, but I don't know. I haven't used it. I haven't purchased it because it unnerves me, but I'm considering it. And then the other deck that gives me the willies is, I believe it's called the Wizards of Barge Tarot or something like that. I'll put a picture up on the screen. That one I'm closer to purchasing than the Deviant Moon, but this one has, like, it's kind of weird and quirky, just bizarre, a little uncomfortable as well as far as the artwork goes. It's very silly though, and I think that I kind of want something like that, a bit more silly and fiery, but I feel like it would give me the willies as well. But I don't own either of those, but those would be 2 decks that I would choose for this prompt if I own them. Well, and apparently even if I don't own them, because I put them here anyway. Prompt 14, what's your favorite deck for shadow work? Now, again, this is my problem. A lot of these prompts suit like certain decks, and so obviously Crow Tarot comes to mind, but I didn't want to feature it dozens of times. I will mention it, but I don't want to feature it. So my other shadow work deck is the Wild Unknown Archetypes Oracle. So this one I almost always pair with yeah, look at the packaging, it's absolutely insane. I almost always pair this with the Crow Tarot when I do shadow work. It is a process to get that deck out. I love that it's a circular deck. I don't really have that many circular decks. I don't like the cardstock. It's hard to shuffle, but the artwork is so cool, and I love all the archetypes in it. I mean, there's so many, and I feel like this does so good with shadow work. Like, okay, like Venom. I don't know, I just picked a random one. So okay, this is another problem. LXIII, what is that, like 63 maybe? Is that what that's supposed to mean? Am I crazy? So like, here's the entry for it. It's so like, this one's about self-realization through suffering or unwillingness to find a solution or forgive. They have like, you can go deeper with poetry and like prose, and like it has like little prompts on the side. Like this one says, when you harm another, you harm yourself. Keep in mind this goes for our earth as well, with cosmic consequences. Or the spreading of venom is like a chain reaction. When we strike others, it is likely we have ourselves been struck. Break the cycle. It's very interesting, and I like how impactful the actual paragraphs are. Like the archetype paragraphs are just so cool. I have some that are highlighted, like so the lover, it says the lover appreciates and experiences the world through the senses, reveling in the glorious details, grateful to savor every last drop of life's offerings. Like it's so, I don't know, there's something about it, like the way it's worded, the way the depictions in the guidebook are. Like I never read with this deck without the guidebook, which is why it never gets used for clients, because I don't want to whip out the guidebook during client readings. I'd rather be more intuitive. But for myself, I use the guidebook, and I think that this is just so impactful with the guidebook. No, I'm not a fan of this one, but aside from that one card, I really, really like the art in this deck. And it's amazing for shadow work, especially when you use the guidebook, because like looking at the dead end, like you can get your own meanings from this, sure, but the guidebook almost always has a few amazing quotes that just like strike you in the heart, but like it's needed, it's much needed. And that's like the whole point of shadow work, is like destroying parts of yourself that that needed to be spoken to, I guess, that needed that little push. So I like this deck for shadow work. Okay, so for prompt 15, what deck do you love in theory but not in practice? And I think this will span for any deck under this category, but from my personal like collection, for my personal deck, it's the Crystal Wisdom Healing Oracle, or my only Crystal Oracle deck. So in theory, I think crystal decks would be useful to read, but in practice, it just, I don't know, maybe it's because I don't know every like crystal and rock that's in. Like, I know Kambaba Jasper, I know what it is, but I don't know what it means, you know? And so, like, I feel like it's kind of impractical to use, and even when you do know what it means, it's kind of like, okay, and I have a hard time relating it to the reading. So, I don't know, like, if I were to pull, like, rose quartz, you know, I'm like, okay, it means love, or, like, self-love, compassion, universal love, that kind of stuff, and I don't know how I would tie it into a reading. Like, if I got amethyst, I'm not really sure how I would use that, except for maybe like, oh, use your intuition, you know, like in a reading. But I feel like it's kind of impractical when it comes to readings. And so like in theory, I think crystal oracles work well, but in practice, they just don't work for me. And so I have this one deck. I am looking for another one, perhaps one with keywords, or like a key phrase, or just a bit different than this one, because then I might be more inclined to use it and maybe my opinion would change. But at the moment, I think they're good in theory, not in practice. Okay, so for prompt 16, it says, what deck would you never use to read for someone else? And I'm not going to pull it out because I already showed them here, but both the Crow Tarot and the Archetypes Oracle are two decks that I would never use for anybody else. The Crow Tarot and the Archetypes Oracle are two decks that I would never use for other people, because for the Crow Tarot, it's so personal to me. And so impactful, like the way that the readings are for me and how intuitive I feel and how connected I feel to that deck, I just don't want to share it. And for the archetypes, I feel like it wouldn't be an amazing reading without that guidebook, and I just don't want to pull out a guidebook during a professional tarot reading. So I don't really use either of them for other people. I don't use them for my friends. Those are decks that just are used by me. Alright, so for prompt 17, it says, what deck would you never use for yourself? So all of my decks are going to be used for myself, but I do have a deck that I pretty much exclusively use for other people, not on purpose, it's just the deck, I never feel the need to use it, and that is the White Newman Tarot. This is the deck that I use the most in client readings. I don't know why, it's just I always gravitate toward it. It's so approachable, and the deck itself is always so eager to do client readings, and it does a really good job. So this is the White Newman. It is super cute. It's like cartoony. I really like it. I just don't pull it for myself as often. I often pull it for clients and for other people. So for friends, for clients, just in general. It does amazing for general readings. It's very practical. I really like this deck, but I just hardly ever pull it for myself. Now, would I? Yes, if I felt the need to, I could pull it for myself. So I would say it's not like I never use it for myself, but I certainly use it for other people more, and it does a good job at that. And so, yeah, I guess it fits the prompt, except that I would use it if I wanted to. I just don't usually feel called to use it. So that's the White Newman. Okay, so for prompt 18, it says, what deck could you not bring yourself to buy? So again, I don't have it because I couldn't bring myself to buy it, and that is the Starseed Oracle. I have had my eyes on the Starseed Oracle, as well as all the decks by Rebecca Campbell, and then the artist, oh, what is her name? Is it Daniela something? I cannot remember. I'll put their names up on the screen, but I love the art and I love the idea behind the decks, but I just cannot get myself to do it. I just can't get myself to buy any of the decks, and the Starseed Oracle is the one I got closest to buying, but I just never bought it. I think because when I hold the cards, I don't feel like anything from it, and it feels too mass markety to me for some reason, and there's just sort of this disconnect. But then also, like, if I have the money, there are other decks on my wish list. They're just higher up on my wish list, so I just never pull those. So yeah, those are the decks that I couldn't bring myself to buy, namely the Starseed Oracle. Okay, so for prompt 19, it says, what's your favorite pip deck? And this is a very easy one. I don't have very many pip decks. I think I only have 2. So between the 2 of them, Arcana Isis Sakura wins. So I think my other pip deck is my vintage deck. I don't think I have any other pip decks beyond that. Maybe the Jane Austen Tarot, but I don't really think of that deck as much. I just don't like pip decks. I don't know what it is. They're just too impersonal for me. Like, I lose that connection with them for some reason. But this is my study deck. It's gilded. It's beautiful. I love the cardstock. It's very luxurious. Honestly, now that I kind of think about it, both the pip decks that I have are my most expensive decks, which sounds ridiculous considering they're pip decks. Okay, great. So yeah, my 2 most expensive decks are my pip decks. That's awesome. So this one is pip-like. Obviously there's a bit more happening, but it's still pippy in my opinion, and it's about as pippy as I want to be. So yeah, I mean, like, see, there's like a cage there. That's nice. I mean, like, it's not totally pippy, but then, like, with the quartz, it's usually just a picture of them, and then you have to use your knowledge of the element and the suit and stuff to, like, figure it out. But all of the minors are a bit pippy. Yeah, but I would say this is my favorite because I like the art. I really do. I love the majors. The quartz I actually do like, surprisingly. I think because after reading Rachel Pollack's book, 78 Degrees of Wisdom, I started to understand the quartz a lot better. And this has all of the planetary associations and zodiacal associations on the sides, as well as the elements. So, like, here's the Knight of Discs. So this would be the King of Pentacles. And so fire for king, and then earth for pentacles. Or we had, like, the Queen over here somewhere. Just saw her. Queen of Pentacles, which would be water for the Queen, and then earth for pentacles. And that really helps, I think. So yeah, I think this is a good study deck. It really helps. It's really pretty. I like the rainbows. It's pippy, but not too pippy. It could be worse, but I'm just not usually drawn to pip decks, so I'd say this is my favorite pip deck by far. Alright, so for prompt 20, it says, what deck slaps you with the truth? And there is no deck that slaps me in the face harder than my classic tarot. Now, this was by Magic Seer, but I cannot find the link to it anymore, so I may not put the link in the description because I can't find this version for the Magic Seer. The box is beat up, the cards are beat up. It's my beloved RWS first ever tarot deck, and this is my baby, and it's brutal. It's a brutal baby. I love this deck. It's amazing, but yes, it slaps me in the face, and I think even though the Crow Tarot makes me cry when we do shadow work stuff, and even though I do have other decks that kind of slap me in the face, again, no one really hits me as hard as this deck. This deck is cruel in the best of ways. It's one of the reasons I really, really like it. I feel like it teaches you the lesson and it doesn't shy away from the hardship. It's a very bright deck. It looks like it'd be really friendly. Don't be deceived. Don't be deceived by how happy and colorful and bright it is, because it is mean. But yeah, this would be this would be the deck that slaps me in the face, for sure. Alright, and for the final prompt, for prompt 21, what's the deck that got away? So, it took me a while to figure out what deck this would be because there aren't a lot of decks that got away from me, and even then I feel like there's decks I missed out on, but they didn't get away from me. In my mind, a deck that got away from me is one that I had every opportunity of keeping, but I gave it away, or I had every opportunity of purchasing it, but then I just chose not to, and because I didn't, I regretted it later. To me, that is what that prompt means, but I don't have anything like that. But I do have decks that I missed out on simply because they were released before I ever knew about them. So there are two that come to mind. The first is the Yokai Yochi Tarot by Bubopleg, or Bubopleg, something like that. That one was on Kickstarter, and I did not know it was a thing until I started seeing other people receive their Kickstarter orders, but by then it was it was no longer being sold. So I missed the entire Kickstarter fund for that, and I saw it way after it had expired on Kickstarter, after the campaign was over. So that one was really cool. I do have a bit of like, not FOMO, but like, man, I wish I could have had that deck, So if they ever do a reprint, I will probably purchase that one. But yeah, I missed that one. Another one that I missed that I really wish I hadn't was the Tarot of Delphi. I see so many creators with this deck. It is gorgeous. I am in love with it. I would love to have it myself, but the Kickstarter campaign happened before I ever purchased my first tarot deck, or like I had just purchased my first tarot deck and I was still new to tarot and I had no intentions of buying a second deck at the time, and I didn't buy my second deck for almost a year after getting my first one. So it happened around the time that I purchased my very first deck, which was this one here, and that's when the Tarot of Delphi was on Kickstarter, and so I totally missed it because I had no idea. I was never in the tarot community like this at the time, so I totally missed it, and I really wish I hadn't because that deck is so hard to find, and it's so beautiful, and I love it, and if they ever do a reprint, I am going to be there, as long as I hear about it, I hope. So that's one that I feel like got away. But otherwise, yeah, I don't really have any decks that got away. So that is my 21 tarot questions, 21 prompt tarot. I'm gonna go ahead and get us into the outro, and then, yeah. Alright guys, so that was my answers, my response to the 21 tarot questions from Lisa's channel, that tarot tag, and I honestly really enjoyed it. I have never done a tarot tag before, and I thought that was really cool, really fun, and it was interesting because I feel like these prompts really challenged me to like think about my decks in a different way and to pull out decks that I don't normally talk about, as well as just like some that I talk about like all the time, like the Crow Tarot. But aside from that, I thought it was really interesting, and I had fun looking at my decks through a different lens. Like, I'm so used to pulling them out and being like, oh, I like this deck because of blank, and then this time I was, kind of encouraged to look at the deck and be like, oh yeah, this is the deck that I only keep for the art, or this is the deck that I just haven't, I don't understand, it's beyond me, like that kind of stuff. So it's kind of nice to like talk about a deck in a different way. But anyway, if you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and let me know, because I'd love to show more stuff like this. And yeah, so that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I will catch you later.